Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I was minding my own business this morning on my phone and I randomly got served up one of my own videos. So as I'm not logged in as me on my phone as such, I thought I'll give it a quick watch, and lo and behold I was relatively quiet on it. Now I do amend the sound settings once I record videos because a lot of you have said I am quite quiet. However, this was still quiet, so I have ordered a new microphone which is to come Sunday. So hopefully that should improve the quality of the sound for anybody that has been struggling. So my apologies, I thought I'd kind of rectified that because not a lot of people have been bringing that up. So people have asked what I do when I'm not doing manufacturing research, etc. And I do like to run abyssal sites. Now general PvE I don't seem to be particularly good at. And as an example, I spent about an hour in Highset this afternoon running exploration sites and made about 40 million ISK, which I didn't think was particularly good, although I did get to see some fantastic explosions which made it all in all worthwhile. And so as I said, I do quite enjoy doing the abyssal sites, and I think it was about 2 weeks ago there was a guy on Reddit, I think it was called Lowput, I'll try and find the channel and I'll link it in the description, but basically he was running cataclysmic level 6's electricals, and he was doing it in 3 frigates, which were the Retributions and a Deacon, and it was for a relatively low amount of ISK. The total fits came to about 200 million ISK, and he was estimating that he was making around 900 million ISK in regards to taking all the expenses away and the odd ship loss, which I thought was fantastic, obviously. And that worked quite nicely because I've got 2 characters that are pretty much maxed out in retribution skills, and basically all then I needed was the Deacon, so I fitted up one of my alternate characters for the Deacon and donned the 2 retributions and jumped on the test server. Now it would appear that I have the skills to fly the Retribution and the Deacon in the Cataclysmic, but not the actual skills required to stay alive, and I did find myself dying on a semi-regular basis that, although it would have made me ISK, generally it wouldn't have been a fun experience. And so although I didn't actually have the skill to be able to run it like he did, it did give me an idea, or I took an idea from him, and that was going for cheap ships, cheap disposable ships that didn't really matter if you lost them. Now I've obviously been going the other way with overly tanked ships in order to face tank and basically make it out every time. Now anybody that's done the Abyss on semi-higher levels will know this generally includes a lot of bling. And yeah, just having the thought of going cheaper, again, I hadn't really considered, so it took me in a bit of a new direction. And that's the footage that you're seeing at the moment. That is me with 3 ships running Firestorms. Now obviously the electricals make it easy because you get extra capacitor, but the capacitor isn't really that big an issue, and although it would be nice to be able to run the electricals, the electrical filaments run into the millions of ISK, and for frigates you need 3 of them to be able to enter the Abyss, so it's obviously quite an expense and it eats quite heavily into any kind of profit that you're making. So I took the overall idea and applied it to Firestorms instead. Now Firestorms, unlike the electricals, get the minus properties to thermal, which is quite handy because again, for the lasers they do EM and thermal damage, so that was obviously quite a big bonus. And so the driver here for me was that Firestorm filaments are very cheap in comparison. You can literally pick them up for hundreds, tens of thousands of ISK, where the electricals are in the millions or tens of millions of ISK, and obviously that cost is then times by 3. So the slight disadvantage obviously to doing the Firestorms is they are slower and you can't do anywhere near as high a tier. And so on the test server I've been cranking out tier 4 Firestorms with ease. Now obviously there is the odd hairy moment, but all in all it was relatively straightforward. However, when I came back to Tranquility to try it, I died on the very first attempt. So I did some tier 3s just to get the hang of it, and then after 30 or so tier 3s I went back to do another level 4 and I died straight away again. So that's obviously put me off quite considerably trying level 4s again, because generally I don't want to die particularly often, and the tier 3s pay quite well. I did 2 tier 3s while recording this and I made an average of 45 million per 10 to 15 minutes. Now obviously that's not fantastic, but I think it was this one that we're watching right now. It took me a little bit longer and it was a bit more awkward. I'd generally change the screen setup in order to be able to film it to make it look a bit better, and it threw me off somewhat. And although I think there's a few moments in here where my armor gets a little bit low, I'm not really particularly worried. The Deacon never uses more than 3, never really gets to use its 3 reps that it has. It's usually 2, because it's cap stable with 2, and although it can use 3, it can't use it indefinitely, so there was always another cap armor repairer ready to use just in the off chance. And I would like to try this with Darks as well, with the Hawks, because I am quite a fan of the Hawk. I like using the Hawks, but the Hawks have quite a lot lower DPS, which is kind of an issue, and with the Retributions they can have the remote repper fitted, and therefore I'm able to rep the repair ship as well. As you can see here, that Sol has, or is, the repper ship in the background. Whereas the Hawks have such tight fitting, it's almost impossible to get a transfer on it without having expensive implants, etc. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. However, the Hawks do have the added advantage of being able to shoot at long range. They do decent damage, and in Darks they don't suffer from the tracking. And the multi-plasmids are generally better, I believe, or feel, in the Darks. And that's the plan in the next week or so, but I'm going to jump on the test server and do Hawks like this and see how it gets on. Now, as I said, the general setup for this I will link in the description, but it's pretty much the exact same setup that you had. The payout generally is around 200 to 300 million ISK per hour, not including any skill books, although I have only had 1 skill book drop, and that was thankfully the small disintegration specialization skill. Now again, I'm still tinkering with this, and the fact that obviously you need 3 characters in order to be able to do this means it's obviously not viable for a good number of people, but again I thought it was quite interesting, and again it's something I really quite enjoy, and I do this quite a lot in my time that I'm not doing other industrial stuff, just because I like the randomness of it. I like the different ship spawns, etc., and I like the randomness of the loot payouts. So on the test server running the Firestorm, the T4s, I was getting an average of around 400 million ISK per hour. So if I can replicate that, obviously that is where I'm trying to head. And so I've tried a variety of ships. I've done the Nurgles, I've done the Kikimoras, I've done the Dragas, the tier 2 Kikimoras, I've done the Hawks, and I've done the Retributions. And at the moment the Retributions are coming out heavily on top. So I'd like to hear if you have any suggestions for running any of the Abyss sites. Now obviously if it's I'm interested in the Firestorms and the Darks predominantly at the moment, due to the fact that obviously their filaments are much cheaper. I think with that I'll wrap the video up there. So much for this space. Sunday I will have a new microphone. Whether I can get it to work or not remains to be seen, but fingers crossed. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.